Hey, how you doing? This is Adam Post, publisher of more than 1,000 comic books and marketing expert covering the woke military disaster over at West Point. West Point is a prestigious military academy that's now pushing a diversity studies woke agenda. Let's get into the story. West Point goes full woke, pushes diversity and inclusion studies. The academy is churning out young Marxists with contempt for the very nation they're preparing to defend. The United States Military Academy at West Point is offering a diversity and inclusion studies minor as part of its escalating DEI agenda, championing critical race theory and transsexuality, among other leftist ideologies. Why do we need this in our military? We don't. They're just trying to normalize this kind of stuff as much as they possibly can. Get it into society. Make it normal. What's normalization? Normalization refers to a process that makes something more normal or regular. Most commonly, it refers to normalization in sociology or social normalization, the process through which ideas and behaviors that may fall outside social norms come to be regarded as normal. The more you see of something, the more normal it seems. I know it doesn't feel that way all the time, but if you're completely surrounded by it, eventually it really has an effect on people. Though the Academy cloaks its DEI, or diversity, equity, and inclusion mission in idealistic, cultural left rhetoric, a review of its sustaining documents reveals signs of the same woke mindset that has divided the nation by mainstreaming sex and gender radicalism, as well as a radicalist obsession deemed by many conservatives and normal people to be anti-white racism. The multi-billion-dollar corporate DEI movement, many call it an industry, promotes left-wing ideas and fads that have collectively been described as cultural Marxism by critics on the right. They say its gender and race focus elevates grievances and alleged historical injustices while pitting societal groups against each other rather than assessing all people by a single standard based on character and qualifications. In the military in particular, you want things to be cohesive. A cohesive unit is made up of members who communicate effectively, overcome conflict, and work together willingly. Nothing to do with diversity, equity, and inclusion ideas. You want a shared commitment. In a cohesive group, members are both committed to one another and collectively committed to a task, mission, or cause. Though the DEI movement champions inclusion, the ideologies behind it routinely show themselves to be intolerant of traditionalist and religious or moral perspectives, labeling them as hateful, bigoted, and phobic, hence the smear terms homophobe and transphobe. West Point justifies the intense DEI focus as a way to help recruitment by appealing to a younger generation that values diversity, which is ironic because conservatives and normal people blame the U.S. military's same woke push as the main reason for the current recruitment crisis. The Diversity and Inclusion Studies minor was established in 2019. Quote, "Our armed forces must reflect the nation it defends, including the diversity of the people we serve," states a West Point Diversity and Inclusion Plan report. Quote, "We have a growing divide between the military demographic and the American people, particularly within the officer corps. An army not representative of the nation may become illegitimate in the eyes of some people." Okay, so that's completely ridiculous. We've had that situation in the United States before, nothing like what we have now, a much less, quote, diverse leadership in the military. It never created problems before because everything has been merit-based as a system. Not that there hasn't been wrongdoing in the military, there's been wrongdoing everywhere, but it was a working system. Now someone's trying to take it apart. A headline by Revolver News for its story about the West Point DER minor sums up the thoughts of many conservatives who associate DEI with mainstreaming of social radicalism. Quote, "Stick a fork in West Point, they're done. Wait until you see the new degree they're offering." The Revolver article, and by the way, revolver.news by Darren Beattie is excellent. He does a great job. He's got a lot of great reporting on it. It's free, so you can check it out at revolver.news. Definitely be sure to do that. The Revolver article states, quote, "Well, West Point had a good run, didn't it? Once a beacon of prestige and elite training, this institution produced some of America's most outstanding leaders. But times have changed. Today, West Point is just another woke joke, churning out young Marxists with a contempt for the very nation they're supposed to be preparing to defend." It continues, "What a travesty, and how embarrassing for West Point. The left has successfully transformed many of our nation's college students into pint-sized Marxists, and now they're seeking to steer our U.S. military officers down the same ideological path. The USMA defines diversity as follows. Quote, diversity is the range of human differences, including but not limited to race, ethnicity, gender, gender identity, sexual orientation, age, social class, physical ability, religious or ethnic value systems, national origin, and political beliefs. The following are included in West Point's overall diversity, equity, and inclusion program. Inclusion of marginalized authors and research in the course designs throughout the core curriculum. PL 377, which is a course. Social inequality modified with content on anti-racism, anti-sexism, honor, resilience, and wellness. A, quote, diversity club called Spectrum for LGBT individuals. A DEI conversations talking point presentation that gives these as, quote, example questions for cadets. What are your thoughts and feelings about George Floyd's death? How would you respond if that was your brother, husband, or father? Have you experienced or been privy to inequities concerning black civilians or soldiers? The, quote, diversity and inclusion studies minor is described as follows. The diversity and inclusion studies minor exposes cadets to varied perspectives and methodologies for understanding and studying people. Moreover, the DISM at West Point offers cadets a framework for critically and creatively thinking about the broader impact of diversity and inclusion at the individual, organized, societal, and global levels. It also provides our cadets opportunities to pursue diversity and inclusion in intra, multi, and interdisciplinary ways. Here are some of the courses offered with DISM. Leading inclusive teams, social inequality, power and difference, politics of race, gender and sexuality, world religions, race, ethnicity and nation, society and culture in American history. And another interesting story related to West Point sued after Director of Admissions brags about what happens to white applicants. When Ibram X. Kendi's preposterous thesis that the only remedy to past discrimination is present discrimination becomes mainstream practice, you know things are upside down. Kendi is the author of the poorly reasoned 2019 leftist propaganda book, How to Be an Anti-Racist. Also, Anti-Racist Baby, which became not only a bestseller, but a clarion call for progressives. In a speech at the Aspen Ideas Festival, Kendi put his anti-reasoning skills on display. According to the New York Post, quote, when I see racial disparities, I see racism, Kendi said. If that isn't a blanket generalization, the logical fallacy of that name has no meaning. And yet Kendi's obtuse theories have burrowed deep into some of America's most beloved institutions like a fever-carrying tick in a bloodhound's ear. The United States Military Academy in West Point, New York, which has graduated the likes of Ulysses S. Grant, Douglas MacArthur, and Dwight D. Eisenhower, is one such institution. And it's being called out for it. On Tuesday, lawyers representing the Students for Fair Admission sued West Point for alleged race and ethnicity discrimination in admissions decisions, according to Politico. SFFA is the anti-affirmative action group that tanked race-conscious admissions practices at Harvard in a Supreme Court decision. This brings us back to the great Edward Blum, who is taking down this kind of racism wherever he can find it. But the decision that nixed racial admissions policies at Harvard and the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill determined that because no military academy was party to the suit, the opinion did not include admissions issues at these schools in light of the potentially distinct interests that military academies may present. According to Politico, SFFA didn't agree with the justice's logic and argued there is no justification for using race-based admissions, and since the practice is now illegal at non-military universities, West Point is not exempt from the Constitution. SFFA contends that West Point is violating the Fifth Amendment with its skewed admission practices. The Fifth Amendment contains an equal protection principle that binds the federal government. Quote, instead of admitting future cadets based on objective metrics and leadership potential, West Point focuses on race, the lawsuit claimed. In fact, it openly publishes its racial composition goals, and its director of admissions brags that race is wholly determinative for hundreds, if not thousands of applicants. Quote, because skin color can be and often is a decisive factor for successful applicants who are chosen from those congressional nominee pools, it is equally dispositive for the other qualified nominees who are turned away, the lawsuit states, according to The Hill. Put differently, because race is a positive factor for some West Point applicants, it is necessarily a negative factor for others. It's tough to get into West Point without having your race count against you. You have no control over who your parents are or what color of your skin you're born with. Those are existential facts. The color of your skin has nothing to do with skill, determination, or integrity. West Point enrolls 1,200 to 1,300 cadets per class, according to Politico. Applicants must pass medical exams and a physical fitness test. They have to get nominated by either a member of Congress, the vice president, or the president. That's all before prospects can be considered for acceptance by West Point's admissions office. Fewer than 10% of the applicants are admitted. Having the color of your skin or ethnicity taken into consideration for admission makes about as much sense as Ibram X. Kendi, whose logic often descends into dizzying circularity and tautologies, according to the Post. When asked to define racism at the Progressive Aspen Fest, Kendi said it is a collection of racist policies that lend to racial inequity that are substantiated by racist ideas. You can't use the word when you're trying to define the word in the explanation and make any sense. That's not just for the word racist, that's kind of for all words. That's like West Point contending that they have race-based admissions because skin color matters when a future graduate is heading troops on a battlefield or advising a president whether or not to go to war. The average American is better at logic or possesses more common sense than many of our country's leaders. The Founding Fathers knew this. It's why they wrote the Constitution in the way they did, by the people and for the people, regardless of the color of their skin. Quote, for most of its history, the SFFA lawsuit stated, according to Politico, quote, West Point has evaluated cadets based on merit and achievement. America's enemies do not fight differently based on the race of the commanding officer opposing them. Soldiers must follow orders without regard to the skin color of those giving it to them, and battlefield realities apply equally to all soldiers regardless of race, ethnicity, or natural origin. It's high time someone started picking the fever-carrying ticks of critical race theory, anti-racism, and all the other mumbo-jumbo out of the necks of our institutions. The proponents of such nonsense are either cultural Marxists or useful idiots for the radical left. Only common sense can save us now, not theories based on hate rather than reason. The military is no place for the woke agendas. We need the military to protect our country and to protect our freedoms. The woke agenda does not belong anywhere near protecting our country and our freedoms. Let me know what you think of all this in the comments below. Always love to see your ideas. Please be sure you are subscribed to the channel. Click the bell for notifications, give me a thumbs up, and I'll see you again soon with another video. And if I don't see you, I will miss you.